Hello students, welcome to engineering assignments. In engineering assignments, we are going to study a subject called as disaster management, in which we are going to study the fifth module, which consists of a topic called as legislation in India on disaster management. Whenever a disaster happens at a particular region, the primary responsibility of the disaster management is of the state government, and the state government is being supported by the central government by providing logistic and financial support. So on behalf of central government, the DM division in Ministry of Home Affairs coordinates with the disaster affected state government. So here, National Disaster Management Authority, National Disaster Response Force, National Institute of Disaster Management, and the Directorate General of the Fire Service, Home Guards and Civil Defense and Armed Forces work for the effective risk reduction. And this division is responsible for legislation, policy, capacity building, prevention, mitigation, response, and long-term rehabilitation. Now let us talk about the major responsibility of disaster management division. It includes resource mobilization for relief and response to natural disaster. That is, the movement of the resources should be maintained. See, whenever disaster occurs in a particular area, suppose the area will require some food, some special equipments and all this must be provided by the disaster management division. Next one is that whenever a disaster happens at a particular area, the control room should be open as well as the situation report should be provided. Next is there should be an early warning system to make the people aware about the situation. Next, the disaster management division should be responsible for the state disaster response fund as well as national disaster response fund, and all the matters related to disaster response, the preparedness for the disaster, the prevention of the disaster, mitigation and capacity building before and after the disasters been happening. All this must be provided by the disaster management. Moreover, in disaster management, at times we require some international cooperation, and that should also be provided. Then post-disaster and reconstruction should be provided, and all administration and budget matter related to NDMA, NDRF and NITM should be provided by the disaster management division. Next is to strengthen the fire and emergency services. Suppose a disaster has happened in a particular area and that area requires a high amount of ambulance services. At that time, this emergency services should be provided by the disaster management divisions. Next is all matter related to fire service, civil defense, home guard, including Director General of Fire Service, Civil Defense, Home Guard, National Civil Defense College and NFSC should be taken into matter by the disaster management division. See, when the flood happened in Kerala, at that time the army force, the battalion force was there for helping us. So these all help was provided by the disaster management division. Next is Administration of Disaster Management Act in 2005. Next, provide secretarial support to NEC, HLC and NPDRR. So these all are the responsibility of the Disaster Management Division. Now let us discuss about National Disaster Management Policy. The main objective of National Disaster Management Policy is to build a safe and disaster resilient India by developing a holistic, proactive, multi-disaster oriented and technology driven strategy through a culture of prevention, mitigation, preparedness and response. So it means that this National Disaster Management Policy is not actually a one-day process. We should develop a culture in which the prevention, mitigation, preparedness and response should be built to safeguard the India from the disaster. So whenever I'm talking about the National Disaster Management Policy, let us refresh what is disaster management. A disaster refers to a catastrophe, mishap, calamity or grave occurrence from the natural or man-made cause which is beyond the coping capacity of affected community. That is, see, when something bad happens in the community and the community can't restrict, prevent from happening, the community won't have the capacity to withstand this happening, then it can be called as a disaster. So disaster management involves a continuous and integrated process of planning, organizing, coordinating and implementing measures which are necessary for prevention of danger or threat of any disaster. Now, next one is mitigation or reduction of the risk of any disaster or its severity or consequences. See, if you are building a house at a place where it is always affected by landslide, earthquake and all, so you can reduce the severity of the damages by building the house at a different place. Next is capacity building, including research and knowledge development. For example, you know that Japan is most probably it is affected by the earthquake. Now they have done many researchers and they have developed their knowledge. They have added some extra innovations into their buildings and structures so that they can prevent their house from or they can prevent their building from collapsing. Next is preparedness to deal with any kind of disaster. Next is prompt response to any threatening disaster situation or disaster. Next is accessing the severity or magnitude of the effect of any disaster. For example, in 2018, 19 and 2020, the flood affected Kerala very badly. From that, we have accessed the severity and magnitude of the effect of this type of disaster, and we have developed certain measures to cope up with the situation. Next is evacuation, rescue and relief. Next is rehabilitation and reconstruction. Next in the slide, we'll be discussing about objectives of national policy on disaster management. Okay, first one is promoting a culture of prevention, preparedness, resilience at all levels through knowledge, innovation and education. Next one is encouraging mitigation measures based on technology, traditional wisdom and environmental sustainability. Next is mainstreaming the disaster into development planning process. Next is establishing national and techno-legal framework to create an enabling regulatory environment and a compliance regime. And next is ensuring efficient mechanism for identification, assessment and monitoring the disaster risk. Next is developing contemporary forecasting and early warning system backed by the responsive and fail-safe communication with information technology support. Next one is promoting a productive partnership with media to create awareness and contributing towards capacity development. So here they take the help of media for making the people aware and contribute towards a capacity development. Next is ensuring efficient response and relief with caring approach towards the need of vulnerability section of the society. Next is undertaking reconstruction as an opportunity to build disaster resilient structures and habitat for ensuring safer living. So same thing I told about Japan, no? So Japan they have done many researches and they have special type of constructing buildings and all. Next is promoting productive and proactive partnership with the media in disaster management. So that's all about this video. The next part of module 5 will be dealt in next video. Thank you. Thank you students for watching my video.